Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is, well, I just noticed this says Southeast right here, but that's because we pulled from a different event. But this is for the Northeast COVID protocols webinar tonight. On this call, we have myself, I'm Sarah McAuliffe, Chris Chase, and our chief referee, Jim Dwyer. To go over a summary of what we're going to talk about tonight, I'll go over an intro and talk about how we came to the conclusion of these COVID protocols. We'll go over the actual testing side of the protocols. We'll talk about the COVID officer responsibilities, submitting your team roster and results, going to registration and what to expect when you do get on site, and the review of the venue layout, face mask requirement, safety off the venue, additional safety notes, and then any questions that you may have. So again, this meeting right here is just strictly focused on COVID protocols. We'll save all rules of rowing and racing details for the CNC meeting coming up on Tuesday. But if you do have any questions regarding COVID protocols, go ahead and put that in the Q&A and we'll address them as they come up or at the end. So to start off, again, safety continues to be the #1 goal. So it always is both on and off the water, but COVID adds that extra step of compliance towards it all. So leading up to these documents right here, we had met with many different groups, including our medical commission, biweekly, the CDC guidelines. We've reviewed NCAA guidelines, conference guidelines, and many conversations with IRA, Big 12, other big organizing committees. And we've also gone through these protocols with 3 of our regional championships. So I know some of you were at Mid-Atlantics today and yesterday. So some of you have seen that already. So to start it off, one, I want to thank you guys too for being flexible. This is, forever changing, and the document has been forever changing as we get more updates from the CDC side of things. So thank you for staying flexible and working with us to make sure that we can host this regatta. But to start it off, to talk about our testing protocols. So testing for all athletes, coaches, and support staff is required to attend this event and any other US Rowing regional event. The only situation where you would not have to test is if you are fully vaccinated. And when I say fully vaccinated, I mean it has been 2 weeks since your last shot. So 2 weeks since Pfizer and Moderna of the 2nd shot, or 2 weeks since Johnson & Johnson, the 1 shot. So everybody else is being tested that's going to be on venue at the Northeast Championships. The tests will be coordinated by each individual team. So US Rowing will not be dictating what company to use or setting up any sort of schedule for you guys. You guys are going to determine exactly how you want to go about it. And we are accepting PCR or rapid testing, whatever is easiest, cheaper, and has been kind of in your common protocols at your local boathouse right now. Each team will also designate 1 person to be the COVID officer, and I'll explain that in more detail in the next slide. But this person is truly responsible for gathering all the data. They're responsible for collecting proof of both being fully vaccinated or proof of being tested within 72 hours. And that person is US Rowing's go-to person if a COVID question has come up. Again, all tests must be administered no more than 72 hours prior to arrival on site. And so for the home team, that will end at Friday at noon. So it'll be Friday, or 72 hours from Friday at noon, and all information will then be sent in by that noon timeline on the 14th. The team's COVID designated officer will also be in charge of, again, submitting the 2 documents necessary, which I'll go over in the next few slides. They'll be in charge of submitting all of that paperwork prior to arriving on site no later than noon on May 14th. It's also up to the team designated COVID officer. If an athlete does test positive during the 72-hour period, it is up to the COVID officer to then determine what the necessary contact tracing is, and then to alert US Rowing if any boats need to be scratched or if any lineups need to be changed. So going to COVID officer responsibilities. So again, 1 person from each team is a COVID officer. This person can be the coach, the head coach. It doesn't have to be somebody completely separate. The main requirement is this person has to be on site, because if something does come up, if a team is not following compliance, then they will be the first person that US Rowing will contact, and then it may escalate from there. So the main goal is the COVID officer is responsible for the compliance of the entire team, coaches, and support staff. So at this venue, at this regatta, there are no spectators allowed. So everybody coming to the regatta is either considered a team, a coach, or a support staff. And therefore, all of those people need to follow the protocols that we've stated in our packets. The COVID officer will also be in charge of taking daily symptom surveys. So you can use that in whatever format you see fit. There's some suggestions above, but all of these questions would be needed to be answered prior to each day of competing. You'll also note here that it is added that you will ask the question of, is your temperature above 100.4 degrees? So USRowing will not be taking temperatures on site. It's up to the COVID officer to ensure that each athlete, their temperature does not get above this as well. So just be sure to add that into the questionnaire. Other responsibilities for the COVID officer, they're collecting each athlete, coach, support staff's testing results, as I mentioned, or their vaccination records. They're also contact tracing, and then they're distributing the wristbands. So this is, again, the number one point of contact if any COVID compliance issues come up. So what you need to submit to me, submitting your team roster and results. So you'll see on the actual COVID packet, which is posted both on Regatta Central and on the USRowing website, you're gonna see a link to a roster that looks like this. And the COVID officer will then go ahead and fill out their information here. And every single person who is attending this regatta will go ahead, you'll put their name in, you'll put their associated role, and the COVID officer confirms that they have done all the necessary steps to therefore make them compliant for attending the regatta. So then this document would need to be emailed to me, which is at eventsteam@usrowing.org. And you can CC me on that. And that needs to be sent in by Friday, May 14th at noon. At that point in time, I'll have a good count of how many people are on this roster. And then it's my end goal. I'll count everybody up, be sure that, everybody's been signed off on that. Yes, they have followed the compliance. And then that is the number of wristbands that I'll hand to your COVID officer to ensure that they can get into the venue. So registration and what to expect when you're on site too. So when you arrive on site, again, all paperwork would have already been submitted to me. So you will have sent me your roster, which has your total athlete count, and you'll have sent me the last page of the COVID document that has a signature confirming that, again, your team has been compliant and your team has moved forward and done all the necessary things that we've asked them to do. So at that point in time, then the COVID officer will arrive on site, and I'll show you where that's going to be in the next slide. And they're going to approach the registration or testing tent and check in for the team. So then I'll receive, again, another signed copy, a paper copy right then and there. And that's kind of your ticket into the event. And then I'll therefore exchange the wristbands. And then you will go off and give your wristbands to your team and everybody that is on site at that time.
Hey, Sarah, real quick.
Sure.
3 questions about the same topic.
Yep.
3 different teams have had people test, have COVID already.
Yep.
Is there anything specific that you want from a doctor? What do you want?
Right. Good question. So if you have tested, if a athlete, coach, or support staff has tested positive in the last 90 days, they could show up positive on a COVID test, and it would not be positive, but it would be a false positive. So if that is your scenario, then you would turn in a doctor's note, basically stating that like you have had COVID, you have been cleared, and you no longer have the symptoms. And that doctor's note would be submitted to your COVID officer then. Then your COVID officer could move forward and then click yes and say, yes, this person is compliant there. So really there's 3 scenarios. Either you're testing, you tested negative, either you're fully vaccinated, which means you have had 2 weeks since your last shot, or you have had COVID within the last 90 days and you have a doctor's note stating that it is out of your system and you're good to go. So is there anything else, Chris?
Mark had a question about teams that are sharing trailers. And I think what I'll say to Mark and any of the other coaches, I'll split off space for all of you to have your own team on. So you can set up your tent and you have your boats in a space that you don't have to be coming into contact with the kids from the other teams. So you will all have your own space, regardless of the trailer that you come in on.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So again, once you get your wristbands, the COVID officer is going to go back to your team trailer area or team bus. You guys will all put them on immediately. The wristbands stay on for the entirety of the weekend. So please tell your athletes they do not come off at any point in time. If they do fall off, then the broken one needs to be brought back and I can exchange it out, but is intended that that is your ticket into the event at all times. And then as each person is arriving every day, that'll be your checkpoint in. So volunteers will be looking for that yellow wristband. And once shown, then the athletes, support staff, or coaches can go in. And one thing to clarify too, so adding what is support staff, and there's been a lot of questions of like how many support staff is reasonable. We don't have a strict number on how many support staff. We just ask that it's reasonable, and you know, if somebody is essential to the operation of the regatta and the operation of your team traveling, of course we want them to be there. If it's also essential to the health of certain athletes on your team, that is an essential person, but it's not, you know, 100 spectators or anything like that. It must be essential to the operations. So going over kind of the venue layout. So as you guys come into the venue, there is going to be the USRowing tent right here, which is where the COVID officer will pick up wristbands and any registration items from me right there. Chris, do you want to go over the rest of the map right now?
Sure, and then we have a couple of questions also, Sarah. Most of you have been here before, so when you take that left-hand turn, Sharon Chris just asked a question. The question was, if the kids arrive or the vans or the buses arrive before the coach, they can go to their trailer space and they can stay there as a group. They can't go anywhere else. And then if you come and get the wristbands, you can go back to your trailer and again give them the wristbands as needed. You know, you can pass them out. We will have a portion of the trailers on the boat launch and then a portion in the back of Lee's Park. And you know, we'll go over this on Tuesday night. It is really important that everybody understands that this is weeks later than we normally host regattas, and Lee's Park is doing this as a favor. He will be open for business. There can't be any foot traffic throughout his park. You stay back in the trailer field at Lee's Park, and you walk out to the dock, and then you walk back. You can't go on his docks. There's no insurance. Nobody can be on their docks. Everybody in the world is going to want to be down on the finish line. I'm sorry, it's just going to have to, you know, if coaches happen to be nearby, you know, that can, within reason, but we can't have the whole team down there chanting and screaming and yelling. That's the way it is. The other thing that you all have to understand is that there are two guidelines that in order to do this race, we're threading a needle. The first guideline is this whole venue is in the town of Saratoga. They have no hotels. They have no restaurants. They don't care about the regatta, and they're all fishermen. They don't want the regatta. If I go over $4.99 on any one site and one of the town officials is there, they want it nothing more than for us to hit 500 so that we need a mass gathering permit, okay? And then they can tell us, no, you can't have a mass gathering permit and therefore you can't have the regatta. So we cannot have bazillion parents. I think we agreed 1 per 15, Sarah, at the most. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two, the New York State parks, in order to use the New York State parks, the governor has set out some really different guidelines since we signed the permit. Our permit says that if you go over 200 people, no matter what, everybody has to be tested. That's just a New York State law. It's not us trying to be mean or, you know, or difficult. It's just a New York State law. And regardless of what Governor Cuomo has said, we have to live up to what we signed on the permit. And that is anything over 200 is under these guidelines. So we simply cannot have people all over the place. And then the thing we'll talk about Tuesday night, and I'm sorry if I'm going to come across really hard on this, is I don't need your parents sneaking in. I don't need them parking in all the local neighborhoods, because that means that they will call the authorities. We don't need them all along that bridge and causing a traffic hazard. Anything that draws attention means that the Department of Health and or the town officials will take notice and come down and inspect. And then we have a problem. Like they could come down and pull my permit on that day, on Saturday, and they don't care if we get Sunday in. So everybody just needs to understand that that's what we're trying to, the needle that we're trying to thread. The old days of parking along the road and saying, you can't stop me, it's a state road. I mean, that's just craziness. We don't need any of that going on. Thank you.
The other thing too, Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, but within your team trailer area, that is the only, you can put a pop-up tent there, but there's no other tents that will be allowed on venue.
Correct. So you will get with your tent space or with your trailer space, and if you don't have a trailer but you're sharing one, you will all get your own space. It's yours. You can put a tent up on it. Parents can come, your helper parents can come, but all the food has to be prepared or delivered from off-site. It cannot be prepared while you're there. If you have team vans with parents driving, you'll see where the vans go. So if you're on the boat launch, I'm going to try to make a space for your buses or vans on the boat launch. If you're in the back at Lee's Park, there's a spot back there where you see the vans, and all of the green road, the green line is buses can traverse this. So you can have the buses stay if it's rainy. I mean, it's never rained in Saratoga before. So on the small chance that we get rain, Jim, put your mute on right now. If on the small chance that it rains or freezing rains, maybe, possibly, your buses can stay there for a place for your kids to go. I would just ask that you space them. If you are a single sculler and you're car topping, because we all know that their parents are the coaches and the team officials at that point, anybody in the vehicle that comes with you, if you car top, will go here. You also, everybody in the car has to have the same protocols met as anybody else in the team. So if you bring both your parents and your sister or brother, which we'd like to think they're not going to, but they're going to, they all have to be signed off on as well. So you see the spot here where they can park, rig their singles near their vehicles. And now, if you don't make it to finals, there's no reason for you to bring your vehicle back the next day with your single and, be on site for the heck of it. But you'll see on this where those go. The singles are right there. I don't even know if you can see my cursor. I'm pointing like you can. The team vans are right here. When you first cross into Lee's Park on the right, and the buses can go all along the gravel road. And where you see the words team trailers in the back there, it's actually beneath that where you see the lines. There's gravel lines, and then I will go in and stake out and space off spots. You'll get your porta potty, you will get your team tent, and you'll get your own space to rig. If you want more porta potties, you have to order them from Stone Industries, and I'll send out the email to you, or the letter to you. I'll have them placed in your space, but you get one with the maintenance fee. You're guaranteed one for each of your own teams.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Oops. Okay, going into face masks. So at all times, face masks will continue to be worn at the venue. That is a #1 rule that hasn't changed for any regattas this year, and it does not change even if you are vaccinated. So everybody on site, again, everybody that's allowed in venue will be wearing face masks at all times. Like it says here, surgical masks are preferred. Neck gaiters and bandanas are not acceptable. So we are following CDC guidelines on this. So it must be above the nose and the mouth, of course, and behind the ears, but those are worn at all times. The only times where you're allowed to take that down is, again, if you're consuming food or water, but as soon as you're done with it, that'll go right back up. In regards to masks too. So once athletes walk down to the dock, they'll have masks on. Once you guys push away from the docks, continue to keep those masks on. Once your oars are completely cleared, that's when your masks can come down. The only people that aren't allowed to take their masks off while rowing are coxswains and stern cox boats. So they must continue to wear face masks and eye protection. So if that is a face shield, that works fine. If that is like someone's glasses, that also works fine. Sunglasses, that works fine as well. But some sort of mask and face shield needs to be worn for those coxswains. Again, any rowers can take it down once on the water, but as soon as they come back to the docks for our referee safety and any other coaches that are on the dock, they must be put back on. So again, just to stress, if anyone is found without a face mask, that'll go immediately to the team's COVID officer. And then if it escalates from there, there is an option that the team may be excluded from further racing. So please, please, please encourage your athletes to continue to wear those face masks. We haven't had a problem with athletes doing so at any event so far, but just a reminder on that front. Safety off the venue too. So what we're trying to build is that athlete bubble at all of our venues. And here it's a little bit easier because we are not allowing spectators. So as you guys leave, just being mindful of continuing to stay as safe as possible. So just going over a few recommendations, just optimizing your room occupancy and creating your bubbles amongst your crews as well, minimizing contact during travel, minimizing contact when you're going to and from the venue. So really keeping that as much as possible, keeping that attitude of you're either on site at your trailer area, you're either on the water, or you're going back and forth from the hotel. Again, limit that activity to your hotel and team designated area. If you need food, hopefully there's more of an opportunity to use delivery rather than going out to do so. And then, of course, continuing to monitor the health and wellness of your travel party. So that survey that I shared 3 or 4 slides ago, that should be done daily for everybody on that roster list. Additional safety notes too. So social distancing will be continued on. A team that the idea is that each team has their own bubble. So if you are in your team tent, no, you do not need to social distance in that area because everybody has been tested. You're working in your bubble in that environment. But anywhere else, just making sure you're staying at least 6 feet apart from everyone else on the venue. Again, in regards to hand sanitizer, we highly recommend everybody brings their own and keeps that full. In regards to safety checks too. So going a little bit off of the referee end, and Jim can talk to this at the CNC as well. But in the COVID document, there is a specific point where you are signing off that your boat fits the rules of rowing and it is completely safe to row. We want to minimize as much contact with the referees as possible with touching your boat. So there may be a scenario where they ask the coxswain or the coach to go ahead and pull the heel ties or grab the bow ball, but the referee will not be actually conducting that. So please note before you come up to control commission, check those things. And it is your responsibility. And by signing this document, you're ensuring that your equipment is safe and ready to row. In regards to bow numbers, so bow numbers will be supplied by you all. USRowing will not be handing out any bow numbers for this event since, we won't be using that as a touch point. In regards to docks, we recommend 30 to 35 minutes launching before your race. If you need to go a little bit earlier, a little bit later, that's fine, but we're trying to minimize as much of a buildup as possible on the docks. And one thing to stress too, so really just essential staff on the docks. So not teams going out and sending their aide along. It's 1 or 2 coaching staff or 1 or 2 athletes that's helping carry oars, but as few people as possible. And again, just to stress, so you must wear masks up until the boat is completely shoved away from the dock. And then coming back to when you're coming into recovery, those masks must go back up. There will be from the USRowing registration desk, if you are missing a mask, there will be extras there. So you can always come find me, but definitely bring a few extras because I understand that they will get wet at some point. And then just 2 other things to note. So a reminder, our CNC meeting is going to be this Tuesday, May 11th at 7 p.m. So Jim will be joining us for that, and we'll go over more of the rules of rowing details. And then one last item, there will not be any practice this Friday or before or after racing on Saturday or Sunday. It's too hard. We need to monitor the number of people and it's too hard to add that on to the regatta itself. One last item too, before I take the rest of the questions, this texting service right here, this will be the #1 form of communication if there's any schedule changes, COVID reminders, event updates, whatever it may be. So you guys can go ahead and text Northeast, #Northeast to this number, and you'll be automatically added to the texting system. If you were at other regattas, you texted whatever the other event was. So go ahead and text Northeast now because it automatically adds you to this regatta's mailing list. So Chris, if there's any other questions, I can take those because that's the end of this PowerPoint.
In terms of the texting, I mean, we'll be around, Sarah and I will be around all day, every day. We can also, there's 2 small fields that we're going to be at. These aren't like the normal 75 trailer regatta. So we'll be able to go around. If there's anything that important and you're having a problem with texting, and we can also deliver to the trailers to make sure everybody's on the same page. Sarah, do you want to go over coxswains and masks?
Yeah, just review it.
Yep.
Yeah. So coxswains must be, in stern cox boats, coxswains must wear a mask and eye protection. So that, and I mean, something that covers your mouth, your nose, and your eyes. So if that is a full face shield, that works. That can click all of those boxes. If that is a mask and eyeglasses, that works too, or sunglasses, that's totally fine. But that coxswain is never taking that off. They are wearing that on venue, and they're wearing that on the water as well. Rowers, the rowers in the 8 are the only ones that can then take off their masks while rowing, but coxswains must wear their eye protection and their mask at all times in the boat.
Let's see here. CDC phrase is COVID recovered for more than 10 days since the onset of symptoms. Just in case you're all wondering, for those who have already had it, what the stipulation is. Is it acceptable for athletes to be tested and submit results that are part of pool testing systems?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as it's done within 72 hours. So it's as long as it's within that window. And again, that information is never coming to USRowing. That information is going to your COVID officer, and the COVID officer should keep that with them, whether it's a digital copy in your Google Drive or whether it's a printed out copy. If something comes up, USRowing can audit and see and may ask you to pull it out, but it is the responsibility of the COVID officer to then therefore tell us that you are cleared to do so.
One of the things that we're going to try to do, and Eric asked this question about no more than 500 wristbands given out to any one of the 3 sites. So on Regatta Central, so you all know, there are 1,004, I think, athletes total that are entered, right? So that being said, we can't overwhelm it with parents either, because all that adds up and counts towards the number. So the idea that we won't give out more than 500 per each one of the 3 sites is a good point to make.
Yeah, definitely.
Holly, yes, you can rig on Friday. You can rig all day. Well, what we won't have is practice, because there's no way for us to really manage it all at this point, on the water or off. And the specific thing that the Department of Health chairperson said to me was, whatever you do, because his son rode, by the way, which is how we're getting the permits. He understands. Don't let that out. Are you recording? You're recording this, aren't you? Dang it. I take that back.
Thank God that no one else is watching what you're saying.
So you can rig, Holly. You can't go out and practice, but again, we're trying not to keep, it's common sense when you're going to the docks and coming off the docks that you keep spaced, that you're just not crowding the docks with people. You can bring your oars down earlier. So yes, Holly, you can do that all day all day Friday. And
Chris, there's one thing, if I can clarify too. I got a few questions through email of if you have a pre-existing health condition that is potentially one of the symptoms, but it is clearly not COVID, that if there is proof, if you have migraines, if you have one of the other symptoms of it, then that is totally fine for you to then submit that proof to your COVID officer. And so therefore, when you're doing the wellness exam each morning, if a headache comes up or if a migraine comes up, the COVID officer can then say like, okay, you have no other of these symptoms. You have proof that this is this pre-existing condition, and therefore you'd be cleared to row on that end. But that communication is done with your COVID officer, and that that's on file with them. That does not need to be brought to anybody within the regatta management aspect of it.
So a couple of questions here or comments. First questions are, do COVID officers need hard copies of the vaccination or test proof? Is electronic okay as long as they have it under control?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely don't need to print everything. So if you want to keep it on your computer, that's totally fine, just as long as you do have access to it if something were to come up.
Sarah, I just wanted to go over, if possible, that our referees will have their mask on and all contact and stuff. But when you see the starter won't have his mask on, and nor will a following ref because of the use of the bullhorn. But if they have to come up for any sort of objection, they'll put their mask on and come to the boat. So they'll never approach a boat without a mask on because they no longer need to use their bullhorn.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Here's a couple of questions that are related about rigging on Friday and parents' cars. So the parents cannot remain on site. The cars can follow the drop-off route that's on the map. They can't remain on site. And I know this is a hardship, and I apologize, but there's no way around it. What I can't have is, and I'm sorry, after 25 years and a lot of regattas, this has been proven right every time. You can't trust the parents to simply do what they're supposed to do. Lee's Park is not going to, it's not open for as a parking lot. And there's no, if I was to say yes, there's no limit on how many cars would be all over the place, driving around, you know, parking wherever. So that's not the arrangement we have with Lee's Park. They can drop off the athletes, but they follow the loop out and they leave. Where they go is up to them. And I don't mean to sound, you know, horrible about this. In order to get this lot, that's just the way it goes. Like if it's raining, they can go into the tent that you set up next to the trailer, but they simply cannot, the cars cannot sit and wait. If you have team vans, and I know some teams can't, I understand, or buses, I understand, but I can't have a couple hundred parents' cars hanging out, waiting for the kids to be done rigging. They'll have to go somewhere. There's a public lot, there's a mall, there's plenty of stuff downtown, but they can't be there. We just can't, I can't open Pandora's box on that. So sorry about that, Holly. Unrelated, but time sensitive. The entry packet says that lineups have to be finalized, have real names in them by tomorrow, so that credentials can be printed, but they're not editable on Regatta Central. Will that be open tonight, Sarah?
Yeah, we'll open that tonight, and that will extend until tomorrow evening. It's what's tomorrow? We're on Sunday right now. So it'll extend to tomorrow evening, so Monday at 11:59 p.m. It'll then close for the poll to hear now, for the event poll to hear now, and then we'll reopen it on Wednesday. So from Wednesday to Thursday, it will also be open for review again as well.
Sarah, Liz has a good point. How can they do lineups if they don't know the race schedule and who's available to race at what times? So can you talk about the schedule right now real quick?
Yeah, definitely. So we've had a lot, you know, we are planning for more entries. We've had fewer entries here. So right now it's looking like we will be able to do all 2,000 meter racing on both days. So on Saturday and Sunday doing 2K racing for everything. That schedule, we're finalizing it right now. A draft, a more up-to-date draft than the tentative schedule that you saw previously will come out tomorrow morning. Once that is, again, finalized with any last details, we'll pull that to here now, and then you'll see that final copy of it. But expect another kind of Excel draft sheet coming out tomorrow morning for it all.
And Sarah, if the schedule, if the schedule allows doubling, athletes are allowed to double. And we're going to make every effort we can to allow doubling into, you know, like 4 to 8, double the quad or something. We'll try everything we can to make this a possibility, correct? Correct.
Yep, exactly. And I'll note too, in the events that it's the second events, Chris, and the U17, there's some combined events with 2 different categories. So we are making every effort to split those. And I'll be reaching out to verify which one you're falling under there. But as long as timing works out, then we'll be able to split it. You're on mute.
I think they already have the answer to the splitting out. They already have the U17s and the 2V. I believe the council did a little background check on that, or, you know, figured all that out. Okay. Sarah, would you to confirm a coxswain in a bow-loaded Ford does not need to wear a face mask during the race?
Yep, you're 100% right. So only in an 8.
Is it okay to register at the venue on Saturday if they're driving up that morning versus Friday?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I'll be there bright and early. So if it's easier for you to get wristbands, then that's fine.
Emma asks, with less boats, will there be B finals?
There will not be B finals, no.
Okay, how can we set up lineups when we don't know? Will doubling be possible if each gender is just a half-day racing? Can you specify the time frame for the morning/afternoon racing?
I don't want to commit to times right now. I don't have them narrowed down enough. It'll probably look like really rough. I mean, about a 2-hour time difference in between the men and the women. But we're looking at like an 8 to 11 and then 1 to whenever need be. But that'll be out tomorrow morning.
Will the U17 and novice events be run in the blocks that they are on the event list now, or will there be more space between each U17 event for the possibility of 2 races? So a lot of these questions come around, you know, and I believe if you split out the 2Vs and the U17s, and this is off the top of my head, last time I saw it, that would even make more time in the schedule, which actually might help with Liz's question as well. If we're separating out the 2Vs and the U17s, it may be that the varsity events before the split and after might allow for this, but Sarah, you might have a better idea what the schedule is.
Yeah, the intention is to not have them run back to back, if that's what you're referring to.
Them meaning the U17 events, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, I just want to say that, you know, we were trying to get all the questions into the Q&A, so going back and forth with the chat is becoming, you guys are killing me. So a 3-hour window doubling doesn't sound possible. I think it'll be situational, Liz, and I think actually when they split out those events, there'll be more. I mean, I don't know if Sarah was being exact with a 3-hour. She was giving a rough estimate.
No, very rough.
More questions?
Do you have anything else for me? Nothing else?
Nothing. It doesn't look like anything's coming in. Jim, did you want to want me to give everybody your personal cell phone in case there's any questions for later tonight? I'm kidding, Jim. Settle down.
He was willing.
I was going to say, after you do yours first. Yeah, absolutely.
Jim, my cell phone's been out there for 25 years. I don't think anybody's been shy about calling it.
One thing to note too, so my email is right here. If you have any like COVID questions, please send it to me. The documents that you'll be sending in will go to eventsteam@usrowing.org. Again, you can CC me with it, but it'll go to eventsteam@usrowing.org, not necessarily just my email. So please send it there first. And all that information is in the COVID protocols packet. Any other questions, Chris?
No, it's gone quiet.
Awesome. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Look for those documents coming out tomorrow. And other than that, again, email me if you have any questions, but we're excited to see you guys this weekend.